And we are back. It's another great episode of Liam Picks Fights, brought to you by Prize Picks, the simplest game in DFS. It is not you against a million other people. It's you against single entries, projections that they have on stats across all sports. That's UFC, that's CSGO and esports. That's all sorts of things, the NFL, NBA, MLB. And you guys just pick projections that you like, pick 2 to 5 props, put them together. You use my promo code Liam, and they're going to deposit match you 100% up to $100. So we thank Prize Picks for their support. If you'd like more information, it's in the description box down below. Now, with that being said, guys, I am very excited to break down UFC 272 grudge match season. It's going to be George Masvidal. He's taking on bitter rival, friends turned rivals, Colby Covington, chaos on the other side. I'm very excited about this fight. I think we have a very good fight card from top to bottom, and we're going to break it down from bottom to top. I brought 2 very special guests along with me for the very first time, making his debut on the channel. My man, Billy Briz. We be pubbing. Billy, how you doing today, my friend?
We are doing good. The manager said clear to schedule for this one. It's Liam Picks Fights, my fellow man over here on Pub Sports Radio. Cheers. Pinkies up. Chaos is in town. If you haven't watched it already, you know he's already calling out Conor McGregor and his wife, Justin Gaethje. It's all a show. I love to see it. We're here for a show, so let's get it rocking, baby.
I love it. I appreciate you being here. Excited to get the show started. Excuse me. And we also have my man, returning friend of the show, Sean Orr, one of the sharpest in the space. Incredible statistics on that Bet MMA page. Always impressed when I journey back there to write your previews for the show. Also, the proprietor of sharpmma.com, one of the sharpest articles in all of MMA. I will put my stamp on that as well. So, Sean, thank you so much for joining us once again, my friend.
That's a heck of an introduction. I'm glad to be here. Good to talk with you, Billy. Good to talk with Liam. And I'm really looking forward to breaking down this card. It's a tough one, but I think it's a fun one. So hopefully we can show some value to some people and cash some tickets.
That is always the goal, my friend. And I think that, right from the outset on this card, we're going to be dealing with some very fun, very explosive fights that could go either way. Just want to shout out, one of the sharpest chats in all of YouTube. Thank you guys all for being here. Already 31 people rocking with us live, despite the fact that we're competing with that UFC press conference. So appreciate all you guys here trying to get that edge with us. Going to be looking at the comments you guys have. Drop your best plays in the chat as we go along here. Excited to hear your guys' thoughts on the event. But we're going to kick it off first in the light heavyweight division. I like to mention always, historically, my most profitable division. Ironically, very volatile, but I do think that this is a fun striking-based matchup. Neither one of these guys is really known to push a wrestling-based advantage. Occasionally, you'll see some level change attempts from Oleksiejczuk. It comes to mind in the Bukauskas fight, for example, when he started level changing in closer rounds to try and distinguish himself and get some clinch control time. And I do think that that is a potential avenue here, but it's not something that he goes to unless he's pushed to it. I think most of the time he's reliable to get out there, throw punches to the body from the southpaw position. He has a pretty dangerous left hand, left hook as well. He throws it as a straight, he throws it as a hook, he throws it as an uppercut. The guy's kind of wild with his striking, but when he decides to let it loose and throw, he's also a very dangerous guy. And so I think that he's live in this fight, despite the fact that Dustin Jacoby, he's a glory kickboxer. He obviously has the better pedigree on paper. I remember the Alex Pereira fight. He gets knocked out by Alex Pereira in glory, but again, it's like the high level experience that he has. He's competing in tournaments with the best kickboxers on planet Earth. So he does bring some of that confidence with him into his UFC bouts. But I also see that he kind of has a tendency that we see from a lot of Factory X fighters, which is that he stays in range. He likes to try and throw extended counter combinations, and it does leave him there to be hit on the return. And I do think that Oleksiejczuk is fast. He's clever on the counter, and he hits pretty damn hard. So for me, I would not be laying this serious chalk on Jacoby here, though I respect the people that are doing that. I do think that it's a striking-based matchup where he probably is the better striker. I just think there's a lot of volatility in the matchup. I don't think he's the faster guy, and I have some concerns about the chin and the durability because he gets hit with a lot of hard shots in all of his fights. And I thought Maxime Grishin, not known as a power puncher, almost knocked him out a few times. I thought that fight, was kind of wonky scoring. And Iwan Kutalaba as well, landed about 7 clean, flush, extended elbows right to his face and burst his head open. So the guy just takes a lot of damage in his fights. I don't like that against a guy like Oleksiejczuk, who has a bunch of first-round knockouts in the UFC in pretty devastating fashion. Flatlined a bunch of guys at 3 knockdowns in 60 seconds. I think it was against Antigulov. It's like the guy can hit with power, and when he sets his feet, he's devastating with the left hand. So I kind of like Oleksiejczuk or pass in this spot, though I would not take anything less than plus 170. Billy, how do you feel?
To be honest with you, Liam, going into this fight, I thought there was some line value in Oleksiejczuk. But then when you really get into it, maybe Justin Jacoby's just being underrated here in this spot. He's 6-0-1 in the UFC so far, 6-1 as a betting favorite in the UFC. And I feel like his last fight was just – it was a little bit of an underwhelming performance. He was a big favorite. He got John Allen on short notice. I mean, I think Justin Jacoby went in on short notice. I feel like this is like a toss-up fight for the UFC for him. I feel like Oleksiejczuk, while he is a very quick fighter at this weight class, gets a lot of knockouts and stuff like that, it's just the size, man. Justin Jacoby's going to have a huge size advantage over Oleksiejczuk. I just feel like Justin Jacoby's just going to be able to control this fight. If this fight's going to take place on the feet, give me the guy that used to fight in kickboxing over Oleksiejczuk, who I don't even think is a light heavyweight. He seems like a balloon welterweight. To be honest with you, if it wasn't for Justin Jacoby's gas tank, I would be all over Justin Jacoby here in this spot. But I think shouts to Liam here. Prize picks over 94.5 fantasy points for Justin Jacoby. I think we're going to get some ownership leverage on DraftKings around that price range just because of the guys like Devonte Smith in that same exact price range. And then if you want to jump up to $9,100, who's there at $9,100 that really stood out? Kevin Holland, $9,100. That price tag kind of really stood out. So I think there will be some ownership leverage here. But the prop that I really like here is Justin Jacoby. KO, TKO here, man. Oleksiejczuk, all 4 of his losses have been inside the distance, and I think another one's coming here by Justin Jacoby.
Fair play. I could definitely see it. And, in a high exchange rate fight at light heavyweight, somebody could definitely go down in this fight, and it's very viable that Dustin Jacoby, the guy with the kickboxing background, is the one to find the chin. Sean, how do you feel about this one? You're on mute, my friend.
I'm going to echo Billy's analysis. I went into this thinking, okay, I'm going to play value on Michal. But just after looking at the tape, it's pretty evident there's a huge size parity. Dustin Jacoby was the one who came on short notice, so a lot of people are pointing towards him taking some work to the body last fight and not really – he showed some visible wear after taking hits to the body. But when you're coming off the couch, man, you're on like 1 week's notice – it's not all that surprising to see somebody a little softer in the body. From the technical standpoint, what I see is that whenever anybody circles on Michal, he's absolutely lost. And Dustin Jacoby is pretty good about pivoting, pretty good about circling. I 100% agree with what you're saying. These Factory X guys, they have terrible pocket defense. And my initial premise to betting Michal was going to be, okay, well, Dustin Jacoby doesn't have his calf kick that he throws all the time. We'll go back and watch some of his glory kickboxing matches versus Southpaws, notably Carl Roberson. And you can see that he actually has some pretty decent setups off his inside kick. So I think he's going to be landing inside leg kicks, pivoting off, and he's probably going to beat Michal to a decision. I think some people were able to get like plus 300 on that decision. It's now around like plus 240. I think that's a good look personally. I think the people that are going wild on unders here are a bit misguided. I think Jacoby's going to keep range and just get another decision.
I definitely understand that point as well. So we've got Billy saying he thinks it's going to be a knockout on the Jacoby side. We got my man Sean saying he thinks it's going to be another classic Jacoby UFC outfighting point-based decision. And, I kind of think that Oleksiejczuk I think it makes a lot of sense, but I also think that Oleksiejczuk is live for a KO here. It really depends how he approaches the fight for me. I think if he approaches it like he did the Bukauskas fight, he's kind of dead on arrival because he just fought that fight from the outside, and that would give somebody like Jacoby too much time to make reads. But he's had other fights where he kind of just crashes the pocket like a madman, swinging at the body and the head, and I think he could definitely knock out Jacoby if he does that. Iwan Cutelaba, without much thought process, was able to just like crash forward on him, get some solid offense off, and then take him down. And I don't think that the takedowns will be there for Oleksiejczuk, but I do think that, running this guy down in the first round is possible. And he's a bit of a slow starter. He kind of works his way into a fight. So, Darren Stewart is at a very low level, I think, regarding UFC competition. So that's the first round knockout for Jacoby. I think otherwise he likes to take his time a bit. So a later finish I could see on the Jacoby side, an early finish I could see for Oleksiejczuk. I think it's pretty high variance fight. So I'm going to stay away personally, but best of luck to anybody taking action on that one. Moving along, a fight I do have action on here. We got Ludovit Klein taking on Devonte Smith. I'm going to start with my man Sean here and let him have the floor. Sean, do you have strong takes on this fight one way or the other?
Yeah, it's not something that I'm going to bet on. People bet the Ludovit side. I'm pretty sure you're going to be on him too at that higher number that was out. I didn't get that number. I have some concerns with Ludovit here. I mean, the size parity is going to be noticeable. The guy didn't even look like he was big for, 145, and now he's stepping up to 155. I know he missed weight. I know he's got capped shoulders. He's very androgenic, Eastern European diet. He's scientifically enhanced, but the guy maybe is coming in on short notice and not in the best shape. So for me, I don't know. I think he's the more technical striker, but I just have a bit of a thought in my head that just Smith is just going to put him out personally. Ludovit doesn't move his head very well, and Smith is going to go for it. I don't want my money anywhere near this. I think Smith, if somebody pressures him, he's basically worthless, and Ludovit doesn't fight that way. So this just isn't a spot where I want to fade Smith. And I hate betting on fighters who are moving up in weight. So I'm going to pass.
Totally understand that point of view. Billy, how about you, my man?
Man, this is one of those weird fights from like a betting perspective. Stay the hell away from this. But if you were to hit this from a betting perspective, I kind of echoed the same thoughts that Sean said, man. Devonte Smith rounds 1 or 2 plus 170 on FanDuel Sportsbook. I don't know how you can bet this guy on the money line after his gas tank sucks. If he gets pushed into the third round in any fight, he's just not that guy, man. I feel like we just keep on getting line value on Devonte Smith here. But the reason why I said this fight is weird is because from a betting perspective, I don't want to touch it. But from a DraftKings FanDuel perspective, I think you have to play this fight, man. I mean, Devonte Smith is historically one of the best DraftKings scorers on the slate. $8,500. That's a juicy price range. You got Bryce Mitchell in the same exact price range. Kenny Nwachu, Devonte Smith, Justin Jacoby that we just got done talking about. That 8K range in the middle of it is just seems like gold this week for GPPs.
I like that take as well. And, just to echo what you said as we get rolling here, my DraftKings lineup that I made, and, just full disclosure, I'm not very good at DraftKings. I just started playing, new player, but I'm playing Ludovit Klein as one of my plays on DraftKings this weekend. I think he'll be fairly low owned. And I do think that he has finishing upside, finishing potential. When you look back, the guy has been lined very closely, or he was a significant favorite in his UFC fights so far. And now the market is very low. So I am buying stock, at a very low point on Ludovit Klein. And when I saw him come into the UFC, I thought he had some promise. I bet on him in the Shane Young fight. He knocks him out quickly. I'm like, beautiful. Everything's going according to plan. And the next fight, I actually ended up fading him against Mike Trezano. Kind of got a bit of a gift there, if I'm honest.
You got a gift. I was on the Trezano side. I was pissed. I thought I got robbed.
Hey,
no,
dude.
Trezano won.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I got the Trezano money, but he did not, I didn't think, win the fight either. I thought it was very close. But, either way, it's the kind of fight where I look at this guy and I see Ludovit Klein as a guy who has so far underperformed my expectations, right? I think part of that is that he's been cutting himself down to 145, and not everybody is the same in terms of how they look versus how they feel. And like a guy who's really strong, and I think Ludovit Klein is fairly strong. He was getting those takedowns on Trezano, looked decent enough doing so, like kind of fast and explosive level change. I don't think he's a great wrestler. I think he's just pretty physical. And when we look back at the Shane Young fight, he missed weight for that fight. He came in at 150 pounds. He looked the best he ever has, fastest, most dynamic. This fight, he was preparing to fight. He was looking for a fight from the UFC. Then he gets to accept this fight. It is on short notice, but he was asking for a fight. So
it
he's
just
kind of
seems like a tall task, Liam. You got Devonte Smith, who's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage, 2-inch height advantage. Ludovit Klein, who's moving up a weight class. You also got a lot of Factory X guys on this card. We just got done talking about Justin Jacoby in the last fight. It just seems like Ludovit Klein's about to grab another L, and he's about to get cut from the UFC. I think Devonte Smith here, he's kind of like a markable guy for the UFC, and they've been just giving him bad fights. Like the first fight that he got in the UFC was against Kama Worthy, a teammate that he couldn't get over. He was a huge favorite, busted up at chalk. Then he beats Justin James, who absolutely sucks. I remember watching him on MTV fights. And then he gets embarrassed by Jamie Mullarkey because he doesn't have a gas tank. I just feel like the UFC, it's very evident on this card who they're trying to push and who they're not trying to push. And I feel like they're trying to push Devonte Smith pretty heavily here in this spot.
And it's interesting to hear you say that because, like, Devonte Smith, like that was supposed to be a gimme matchup. Like, here's a guy with no chin, big puncher, go get him. And then he gets touched with, like, what doesn't appear to be a very heavy left hook and a right hand uppercut behind it, and he is sleeping. He's, like, out. And I'm like, well, that's not a good visual for me. Kama Worthy, he does have some finishing upside early in his fights, but he's like one of the easiest guys to knock out in the UFC. Jai Herbert round 1 was a gift. So I don't know, man. I think that Devonte Smith has kind of had a pretty easy road to hoe so far in the UFC and not always made the most of it. So I think they're trying to give him another, winnable matchup here, but I think Ludovit Klein might surprise some people, and I think he might head kick this guy into oblivion. So I'm going to take Ludovit Klein here. I'm going to take him by knockout. I think if I had to pick a slight favorite here, it would be Devonte Smith for all the reasons you mentioned. He was preparing for a fight on this date. He is the natural lightweight, but I do think Ludovit Klein's going to perform ably as an underdog here. I think there was a reason people hit that plus 170 number pretty hard across the market. So I'm comfortable with plus 172 and excited to see how this one shakes out if my man Ludovit Klein can get back on track here. Next up, guys, we got a 125-pound fight between Tim Elliott and Tagir Ulanbekov. Seems like Tim Elliott is a very common underdog pick this week. And I understand the reason why. He's got a lot of UFC credentialed experience. And Tagir Ulanbekov, he's kind of fought close so far in his UFC tenure. I would argue he's had a little bit underrated level of competition. I do think that Bruno Silva is a good fighter. I do think he's been making improvements, shown the best form of his career recently, and then kind of got outclassed in that fight a bit. And I also thought that Alan Nascimento, he's no pushover, and he can grapple at a pretty high level. And he tried everything he could in that fight from a grappling perspective, and Tagir was able to stay safe. So I do think that it's not very likely that Tagir is going to get finished here. I think it's going to be about who's the better wrestler and who's able to get top position in this fight. And I think more often than not, that's going to be Tagir. So I do understand why he's favored. I also think that neither guy's finishing equity is very strong. So the fact that he's such a significant money line favorite is a bit cautionary. And he's fought close and hardly justified his price tags in the past. But I also thought his regional footage was a lot more impressive than what he's shown so far in the UFC. So I'm curious to see if he can improve a little bit on what he's shown so far to date. And Tim Elliott, I kind of thought he gave away his last fight. That was a winnable fight for him. But I did bet on Nicolau there. I did think that Tim Elliott has shown in the past he's not always reliable to make good decisions. He's sort of like given away close fights. So, man, Billy, you seem excited about this one. So I'm going to kick it to you, my friend. Do you got action this one?
Well, in an ideal world scenario here, what I would like to have happen is Tagir comes in here, first round submission, locks up Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott goes to the hospital. And then Gina Manzani comes over, slides in the DMs once again. Because, if Tim Elliott ever gets cut from the UFC, you might see Bill and Tim Elliott fight on a celebrity card over Gina Manzani because she keeps on sliding in my DMs, Tim. That's not my fault. I can't do anything about that. But let's actually break down this fight. This fight here, man, Tagir is one of my boys, but, man, you got me fucked up if I'm paying a minus 250 price tag on Tagir here. He's just been overvalued in the betting markets because he's coming from Eagles MMA. But then you got Tim Elliott on the other hand. I think Tim Elliott's a better striker than Tagir. And then if Tagir can't get off his offensive wrestling, Tim Elliott's probably one of the best scramblers in the division. While I don't think I want to bet on Tim Elliott here in this spot, it's just, man, Tim Elliott at that price tag this week on DraftKings. I guess I'm a fucking sucker. I guess I remember all the times that Tim Elliott has cashed in for me on some DraftKings slates. I got to play him, though, on DraftKings. But Narco Cop said it the best. Fight goes a distance, minus 150. That will be in my package this weekend.
I like it. And we got my man Chad, who asked for a shout out on today's show, says over 2.5. I love it, Chad. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's a similar price as well. So, do a little shopping on your books and see what the best that you could get there if you want to get involved on a little bit of slow down. Don't hit each other too hard and relax. Sean, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I kind of like the overs. They already mentioned it. I took a little bit of Tim Elliott at plus 220 just because, just by the numbers, it makes no sense. Tagir, I mean, I understand that people are trying to rewrite history with Bruno Silva, but I mean, he basically lost that fight, and Bruno has lost many fights in the UFC. Tim Elliott has had some close fights with top competition throughout his career. Not a huge believer in his fight IQ. I think he makes really stupid decisions all the time, but that's why you're getting the price you're getting, is because Tim Elliott is a consistent screw up and you're basically rolling the dice. This is gambling. And plus 220 on Tim Elliott just feels like kind of a no-brainer for me. Since my confidence level is low, it's not a big size for me. Typically, I'd be hammering a spot like this, but Tim has just shown one too many times for me that you can't trust him with the wallet. Tagir, his wrestling game is extremely overrated. If you look at his setups on his takedowns, they're so basic. I mean, he's basically doing WMMA takedowns out there half the time. Honestly, like, I don't know what
he's
people
not
are
that
seeing.
good.
I don't know what people are seeing in this guy. Sure, he's tall. Sure, he's Russian. Sure, he's winning some fights. He's going to have a higher IQ. Russians know how to win fights, so that's the danger here. But I don't know. Tim Elliott, he might be slamming that calf all night long, doing some weird, funky, moving around, throwing a crappy jab that has no power on it.
Sean, if he does that again in the Nicolau fight, I swear to God, dude, I've never seen anybody sidestep looking like they're going through NFL cone shuttle drills in the middle of an MMA fight. That was ridiculous.
He's going to do it again. I mean, for whatever reason, this is what they're teaching over at Glory. So, whatever, we'll roll with Tim. It's by the numbers. That's my play. It's going to be like half a unit.
I like it.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Your reasoning makes a lot of sense. I really just think it comes down to that. Like, when I look at this line and why it is the way it is, it's like, almost everyone agrees that the Zhalgas Umagulov fight was basically just an out and out robbery. So it's like, I mean, granted, it was within the margins. It's a close enough fight, but it was like pretty clear Tagir won the fight. For me, that's like a 14-0 guy. Now, granted, if you want to give the Bruno Silva fight the other way, then it's a wash. But, I do think it's an undefeated guy, an undefeated Russian taking on a guy who we've seen lose a bunch of times, including getting laid on by Mateus Nicolau, who's like not a very big or physical flyweight. For me, that's kind of the difference here is Tagir's just a little bit bigger than him, probably going to be a little bit stronger. He's a little younger. He's a little fresher. So I do think Tagir is probably just a touch ahead of him everywhere. But, man, I think that the numbers make sense for a fight that's likely to go to decision. It's probably going to be relatively close and within the margin because it's a Tagir Ulanbekov fight. So I wish you the best of luck. May the odds be ever in your favor. We're seeing the judges give fights to whoever they feel like these days. So it could really go your way on luck alone, too. So best of luck in that regard. With that being
one of
said,
these Russians got to lose.
Hey, it's going to happen one day. I don't know if it'll be today because we got Umar Nurmagamedov taking on Brian Kelleher. And again, we got a pretty tough Russian here. Although arguably a tougher Russian. He's got the last name that adds minus 200 plus on every betting line for sure. Nurmagamedov, a pretty serious name. And man, Brian Kelleher, he's a guy I really like. You know, he's not a really great fighter, but he's a fun fighter and he comes to scrap. And his last couple fights have been a little bit of a departure from that. It's been a little bit more of Brian trying to keep his job and fight smart and, mitigate some of that damage factor, going for more takedowns, staying in the top position. It's just going to be really hard for him to pull that off here in this fight. And I think on top of that, when I look at, Brian's been submitted by a bunch of people. I don't think that Umar is necessarily that guy, but I do think that if he hurts him on the feet, he could quick snatch something and submit Brian that way. And I do think that he's just good at melding aspects of his game together. He moves right from striking into wrestling, into grappling. And if it's not working, he'll exit it as well. So I think he's probably going to do enough to keep himself safe here and win the fight. I don't have any bet on this fight. It's really an unplayable money line at the minus 700 tag. So it's either a Brian Kelleher money line or pass from a money line perspective, I would think. And outside of that, props if you want to be on the other side. So Sean, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, Umar is the real deal. I'm going to have a 150 unit max bomb parlay on Umar now. But Umar is really the real deal. He does have legit skills. He's pretty sneaky, and I like his shot selection. He's kind of unlike a lot of fighters because he has the element of surprise to his attacks. Nothing he's doing is wholly conventional. So I think it's going to give Brian some problems. I view Brian as king of the regionals, really. He's got a skill set that's pretty basic. He's got, his sub game is really guillotines, which it's all regionals. And to me, I'm just going to be eyeballing that over. And it's coming in right now, so I might be looking at the over. So I'm going to just let people keep steaming that under, and hopefully I get a $+ on that over.
That makes a lot of sense to me, man. And, a lot of times people have faith in big favorites to get the finish. But in these lower weight class fights, got to be a little bit more hesitant, especially when you're laying the chalk in that direction. Billy, how do you feel about this one?
I feel a lot different than you guys. I will say Umar Nurmagomedov, let's start off with him, man. I just feel like his striking is very underrated. I've seen Umar Nurmagomedov fight in Atlantic City in the PFL card back, I think they used to call them the PFL showcase cards back before they actually did the showcase cards. But long story short, Umar can strike, man. And not only on top of that, not only does he go for that offensive grappling, he actually fishes for submissions, man. He's definitely one of the better ones to come out of the Guerrilla Fight Club out there in Russia. I think it's called Eagles MMA now. I think he'll have a better gas tank than Brian Kelleher. The sportsbook odds are saying that it's going to go to decision, but don't be surprised when Umar locks up the submission here at plus 210 on FanDuel. That was way too high for my boy Umar. Fight not to go to distance, minus 128. Brian Bomb Kelleher. They need to change his name. Brian Boom. He's about to get Boom right out the UFC. Go to Bellator somewhere else, man. Brian's a bum.
Oh, don't say this
That's
about Brian. Brian's still a fun. He's a fun
bum,
fighter,
bro. If anything, Tagir got the harder matchup with Tim Elliott than Umar getting Brian Kelleher. Brian Kelleher is historically known for knocking out Hunter Azure on a COVID card that everybody had to bet on because there weren't any sports going on at the time. Other than that, Brian Kelleher sucks.
Billy,
hey.
you got to go with what I did. I don't say he's a bum. I say he's a king of the regionals, which is the same thing, but it's a little kinder. But I agree with you. I think that Boom is opportunistic at best. And Umar is a beast. Look at Chad. Chad's coming after you.
I love it. Chad on the defense for his boy in the comments. And I'm with you, Chad. Brian Boom Kelleher, he's a fun guy. One of the best rappers in the UFC. So
Billy's trying to
Thug Nasty. Don't disrespect Thug Nasty.
I said man. One of the best. Hey, Tyron
Woodley's got real bars.
Does he still have the contract? Is it still active? All right, we can move along. Before we get wrapped up in the worst rap of all time, which is MMA rap, there's nothing worth listening to in MMA rap. Bryce Mitchell at least tried, but goodness gracious, guys, don't listen to that shit. We can move along here to another, talk about UFC blood feud. Marina Moroz taking on Maria Agapova. And these women have called each other mean names across the media. One has accused another of using crack. So we are just going to have to settle it in the cage. And they picked the right line of work. These two women are going to get in the octagon and throw down. I think Maria Agapova is a mean chick. Excuse me. I think she's a pretty, dangerous woman. I do think she's fairly athletic for the division. Got pretty decent size to her. I have some concerns in this matchup. Moroz is a lot more experienced at this level and is probably going to look to close distance, wrap her up, and try and sap her of some of her energy, which I think would be really wise to do. We have seen Agapova cardio dump, but I think oftentimes we look at a cardio dump and we think somebody has bad cardio, and that's not always the case. A lot of times fighting is based on mental state. And so if you're freaking the fuck out or like too ramped up, you could just have an adrenaline dump as opposed to your cardio is bad. You just spent everything instantly and have nothing left in reserve. So you can't keep going. And that's sort of what it looked like in the Shayna Dobson fight to me. So I do think
that fight counts. We're still, that fight counts. That happened.
That fight counts, man. That fight did happen, as a matter of fact. But I do also think that the Mazo fight, I don't want to read too much into it because Sabina Mazo is not a very good fighter. But it's also, I'm just trying to be realistic, but it's also, that's the kind of performance I want to see from somebody. Aggressive, coming out there, throwing a high volume of strikes, and opportunistic finishing. When she hurt her, she didn't mess around with the ground and pound and the, moaning to the referee. She just got on that choke and it was all over. So I really appreciated that intensity, violence, focus, and she comported herself well over the rounds there. So I think if she manages cardio here, this becomes a very winnable fight for her. But I also think the cardio dump is live, laying minus 180 in women's MMA when very limited track record. It has me a little bit concerned. I do think that Agapova is who I will pick to win this fight at the end of the day. But I think the shot on Moroz makes a lot of sense to me as well because Agapova hasn't answered that many questions. Sean, how do you feel?
Yeah, so all I can do is tell you what I know. So the first thing I know is that Halleck Gracie has the worst rap of all time. If you ever want to go look that up, it's called G and a Gee. That is the worst rap of all time. Second, fighting a crackhead is no fun. I know that for a fact. So Marina Moroz has her hands full. I've heard rumors. I've heard that Moroz used to tune her up at ATT. Can't really confirm anything, to be honest with you. But that said, from what we can go on, we can look at the tape. From what I've seen, Moroz, I don't know, man. It looks like her defense isn't all that great. It looks like she's definitely liable to get circled on and pot-shotted to a decision here by Agapova. She's really going to have to create chaos for Agapova. Agapova has this tendency when she starts to brawl to have this really sloppy right hand. It's almost like a paw that comes from down low. So, I mean, Moroz has paths here. It's just, I'm kind of with you. I just have a sneaky suspicion that given Moroz, she is a huge content creator online. She's got a career outside of this. Agapova, she's on crack and surging in the division right now. I think she's going to make it happen. So I'm staying off, but you can't bet juice on WMMA, in my opinion. It's a foolish game.
I hear you for sure. And I think my man MMA Lock of the Night is one of the only guys I know who consistently lays juice and wins on women's MMA. So shout out MMA Lock of the Night. Billy, how do you feel about this one?
Man, pull up the comments. Narco Cop, let's rewind the tape. We were sitting on Brady's show what was her last fight? Oh my goodness. The comment section was a shitting all over Agapova. Are you guys cops or MMA bettors? I'm betting on the person with the drugs in the system. Obviously, it's Agapova. Agapova is a fucking world beater. You think fucking Marina Moroz is about to come off a 2-year layoff, step inside this fucking octagon, and catch these fucking hands by Agapova? Come on, man. Agapova is about to come out here, disrespect another girl out here, and just grab another dub. If anything, this is an easier matchup than the last one. Chump change, Agapova to the bank. Thank me later. It's a ballsy call, but if you haven't ever followed me over on Twitter at Getting Bills, you would know that I am the biggest Maria Agapova supporter. So it could be a simp bet. Call it what you want. Call it how you see it. But you better believe it. Agapova's coming through for the boys again.
It's way easier, by the way, to simp Moroz, by the way. She's got many avenues for you to simp. So look into that.
Oh, yeah. Man. We're already
for all you DJs in the comments. I'll leave that to you. What I will say is I did cash on Agapova as an underdog last time. So I did think that it was a great time to buy stock in her then. I think it's a little bit harder now given the price change. But,
yeah, that price
I do think that she should win the fight more often than not. So, hey, that's my take on the fight. I haven't bet it yet, so no money where my mouth is, but I like Agapova. Seems like we all do to one extent or another. My man Billy with conviction. And we
guys, go to onlyfans.com/Marina Moroz, enter promo pick, Liam's fight pick. Liam picks fights. You'll get
nothing fast. You'll get nothing fast. They'll be like,
Liam, your girlfriend doesn't watch these episodes, right?
No, she does not. She has much better things to do.
Good. We're good.
We have a much better fight to discuss next. I don't know about for entertainment value, but certainly for my betting interest, we got Nicolai Negumereanu. I think I'm the only person in MMA Twitter who tries to say that correctly. He's taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu, and I also try and get his name correct. So big blessings to both those guys. 2 difficult names. Good luck to the announcers this weekend trying to get those both right in sequential order over and over and over. But with that being said, they've now labeled him Nick Negumereanu. He is 11-1, taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu 9-2. But I think one of the important factors in this fight to consider is Kennedy Nzechukwu was knocked out standing in the very first round against Daun Jung in November. And, it's 4 months later. We're right back in the cage here. And I think that that's a little bit concerning, man. The guy's taken a lot of hard shots in all of his UFC fights. I think that Negumereanu hits pretty hard. I think he's pretty reliable to come forward swinging bombs. And what I like about him is I've seen this guy get hit with nuclear missiles and just keep coming forward like nothing happened. And for me, that is what I used to think of Kennedy Nzechukwu until last time I see him get hit. And he's got the guard up and you think everything's all gravy until he goes down. And I do think that this is not smart career management. You take a lot of damage, then you finally get TKO'd in the first round by somebody who's, in fairness, not the biggest hitter. And then we see in the next time, it's like, wow, like they're going to book him 4 months later against a guy who can hit. It's like, this doesn't make sense to me. So give me Nicolai Negumereanu, who's not a very good fighter. I bet him at plus 135. That number's been crushed market wide. I think it's a good spot on the money line here. I think it's, pretty likely he could find a knockout in this spot. But I also think that if this fight goes the distance, it's going to be a very competitive third round, certainly, because Negumereanu will get figured out over the course of this fight. He doesn't do many interesting, nuanced things. He just swings heavies, and he trains with a bunch of good guys. He's not training with slouches. He's been doing his camp, I want to say, at one of these Vegas camps, training with Strickland, Curtis, just like a bunch of good guys, solid guys around the weight. And I think he's going to come in here looking good, looking solid. And man, give me Nicolai Negumereanu. I bet him as an underdog before against Kamer, and I'm back to the well again here. I think this is a winnable fight for him. Sean, how do you feel?
Yeah, I have a bet on Nick as well. I think it's pretty straightforward, right? I mean, are you going to take the plus money on the fighter who is going to be landing shots all around? Or are you going to take the minus money on the guy who's going to do this weird shell that makes no sense technically and is getting punched repeatedly? At worst, what you can do is just arb off of Nick if you look like he's gassing. That's it. So when you got a plus number and the guy is very front loaded, very likely going to win the first round, you got to take it. Kennedy's defense, I mean, this is terrible. He basically is inviting punches to hit him in the ear the way he fights. And he almost leans forward when he does it too. And he's trying to pop you with this left hand the whole time. It's just a recipe for disaster against a guy who throws very wide strikes with a lot of power. So yeah, I like Nick here. Just arb off. If it looks like he's gassing, just do that live. These are two of the worst to ever do it. So you know what you're getting. Kennedy is going to try and homer Simpson. I don't think it's going to happen.
Fair play. And yeah, that is normally the game plan. Eat a lot of hard punches and then start throwing back sometime later. Billy, how do you feel about this one?
The first thing that I think about is, sheesh, 1-800-GAMBLER. This is definitely not a fight I want to bet on. Nick Nurmagamedov, I can't even pronounce the damn name. He's not even that bad. It's just the level of competition. It's just like Sean was talking about the kings of the regional scene. This is the king of the regional scene.
No, this is the king. This is the king of beating up janitors.
Bro, he's beating up freaking crackheads coming off the street, dude. Like dead ass in Russia. Like, dude.
Hey, that was just a reason to support Agapova. So you don't forget he was fighting crackheads. Those are tough guys.
Women and guys are different when it comes into MMA. I want to bet on the girl with the drugs in her system, not the guy. The guys, you get Felipe Lids out there and stuff like that, and Ben Rothwell off of the PEDs. Not a good sign. Not a good sign, my brother. But Kenny, to watch you, I'm with you, Liam. I was talking all this shit. You know, Kenny's a great guy. He swings hard. Big African guy. You know, you're supposed to bet on the Nigerian guys in the UFC. My man got floored by Zhang, who I don't even think don't even get me started on that fight. I can't bet this fight, but I think this might be a fight that you're going to hit in GPPs here. $8,400 for Kenny is not a bad price tag. And Nurmagamedov at $7,800. I expect that to come in probably under 10% ownership. So it's probably a GPP low-owned fight, maybe if you're playing a 10 max, a 20 max. Or if you're one of those people that plays those 150 maxes and just wants to go inside a calculator, I would definitely throw this one in your player pool, though.
You are giving me ideas, my friend. I might have to go from one DraftKings lineup to 2 DraftKings lineups based on that information. But with that being said, guys, we can move along to a much better fight. We've got a women's 115-pound fight, a little bit more significance to this. 2 ranked contenders, Xiaonan coming off of a brutal beatdown that cost me some money, to be fair, against Carla Esparza. And I thought that based on what I had seen, she had some tools for defending the wrestling, but it really was shown to be very surface level. You know, she has an idea of what she's supposed to do when somebody shoots, but when somebody is starting to take her down, she has no idea of how to continue the scrambles. And so I felt like she kind of got exposed in extended grappling exchanges there. And granted, Carla Esparza is the best wrestler in the division that competes. So I think that, man, this is a tricky fight for her to come back to, though, because her skill set is that she throws a high volume of pretty predictable 1-2s. That's going to be a little tough against Marina Rodriguez, who hits pretty hard and who does slip a little bit better, who does line up her shots a little bit better. And I think that she just lands with more impact when she lands. So she throws at a little bit of a lower clip, but not significantly so. I think like 1 or 2 strikes less per minute. But I do think she's going to get off with the more impactful strikes here. My concern would just be that she gets kind of controlled in static positions at times, but I do think she's gotten a bit better at that as her career has gone on. And I'm not sure that Xiaonan is the kind of person that's going to employ a wrestling or grappling heavy game plan or even try and press her into the clinch. So if this fight is contested at distance, I do think Marina Rodriguez is likely to win the fight pretty cleanly. But again, this is a spot where you're asked to pay a pretty significant juice tag. So I'd like to see more money come in on the underdog before I would consider playing Marina Rodriguez this weekend, but I do think that she's likely to win the fight. Billy, how do you feel about this one, my man?
This one is, man, I get PTSD thinking about both of these fighters' last 2 fights. This is one of those type of cards. Man, Jan lost the Cookie Monster so bad. She was in my package. I look like a dumbass. Marina Rodriguez, her last fight was against Mackenzie Dern. Looked like a dumbass there, had Mackenzie Dern by submission. So, man, straight off of that, I don't want to look. Fool me once, fool me twice. The third time, you're a dumbass. So, I don't know, man. I feel like this is just like Jan by decision plus 300. That seems like a good spot. Seems like a little bit off, but Liam, you kind of make good points, man. Marina Rodriguez is really good takedown defense. I don't really expect Jan to just go full Khabib style and just push for a bunch of takedowns. So this could just be one of those ones where you just pray that you come out of commercial break with the winning ticket.
Makes a lot of sense to me, my man. It's kind of one of those fights that more often than not, I expect to go to decision, but I do think that the finishing equity more so lies on the side of Marina Rodriguez. So for that reason, I do understand why she's favored here. Sean, how about you, my man?
Yeah, Marina's going to win, but you can't bet it. The price tag is way too high. You always can fade China PI and make money. So don't bet on these Chinese fighters. I bet on Cookie Monster pretty hard, actually. That was like borderline max play for me. So, I mean, I'm not going to be doing anything here.
I was blinded by the stats, Sean. I was blinded by the stats.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, it's just – I just saw the Angela Hill tape, and I was like, this is going to be easy. But I don't know, man. Marina, she's just got more tools. She should eat her up in the clinch if it goes there. Some people are saying wrestling upside for Jan. I don't know what they're looking at. But, yeah, just pass for me. Marina will win.
I like it. So I think we're all leaning towards the Marina Rodriguez side here, but again, it's just something you can't really be passionate about laying the minus 250 and up. And
no, I like the Jan by decision prop plus 300. If they gave me a gun in my head and they said, make me some money, Bill, I would tell them plus 300, plus 300. Please leave me alone.
You might get shot, though.
Yeah, I was going to say at the end of that, we'd have to see how it shakes. But we do have another fun fight here. I think this is one that could go in either direction. It's a pretty explosive fight. You got two guys that have a decent bit of power that have shown themselves to be finishers in their wins, and also, that have that little bit of propensity to get finished potentially on the other side. Jamie Mullarkey, super tough, super durable, eats damage like it's just no big deal, except when he doesn't. He has been flatlined before, and he just eats a lot of damage in his fights. I mentioned it about the Dustin Jacoby side earlier. It's not like he's a bad fighter. It's just I see it in every fight where he's getting touched cleanly on the chin, and I'm like, when is that going to be a problem? Negu Mariano, same kind of deal, right? It works now. He's 10-1, but eventually that's going to get you caught, and it's going to get you finished. So Jamie Mullarkey taking a million shots on the chin cleanly every fight, that's not going to be sustainable over time. But could it work this weekend? I don't know. I think Jalin Turner, he's kind of had a little bit of a weird run. I think the Vicente Luque fight gives people this, misimpression sometimes that he's got a terrible chin or something. How was he supposed to win that fight? Vicente Luque is one of the most dangerous 170-pound fighters on the roster. And it was so stupid for his manager to take that fight. All it was going to get him was hurt. And the guy was too tough for his own good. He took a bunch of hard shots. And then he gets ruthlessly If you've ever seen a Vicente Luque finish, you know what it looks like. He's got a fully extended arm, just crashing it into a person until they're sleeping. And he's done it more than once. So it's like, you don't put somebody in there to get that beating in their UFC debut. Really stupid. When they gave him commensurate levels of competition, he's been able to thrive and succeed. The Matt Frivola fight, I think he took that on short notice, right after getting a UFC win, and kind of thought, I'm going to roll Matt Frivola. This guy probably doesn't have a good chin. And then he just got wrestle-effed to death. I don't think that's what we're going to see in this fight. I do think that we're going to see Mullarkey try and attempt some takedowns, but Mullarkey likes to get in there and bang too. He likes to get in there and throw hands. And there's been times when he just accepts the fight somebody else has given him where he's coming forward, but they're throwing punches. Hey, I'm throwing punches back and standing my ground. And I think if he does that against Jalin Turner, it's very possible he gets knocked out in this fight. And I also think that the longer the fight goes on, I do see Jamie Mullarkey finding his opportunities down the stretch. I have seen Jalin Turner start to slow down in his footage that goes longer. He normally can manage that as he's starting to slow down. But I do think Jamie Mullarkey is the kind of guy who makes you pay. If you start to slow down and give an inch, he'll take a mile on you. And so I think this fight is probably going to end inside the distance. I know I've heard a lot of people with that take this week. I could see it as well. I think it makes a lot of sense. Both these guys are violent. Both these guys are finishers. Both these guys can get finished. So I think violence is the answer here. And I do think Jalin Turner is more than likely going to win the fight. I just think he's a little bit sharper early in the fight. And we talked about, when you think the guy's going to be winning the fight early, it's kind of hard to favor the other fighter. And I do think Jalin Turner is the sharper guy early. I do think his grappling is a little bit slept on as well. Jalin Turner's no bum in his grappling. And I think that Mullarkey, if he gets him tired, could exploit him in that realm and take the back and finish. But I think that if they're both fresh, we're actually going to see better grappling from the other side here. I don't think that Mullarkey is just outright a better grappler than Jalin Turner. So, Sean, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, it's kind of a sad fight for me because I've been cashing tickets on both guys, whether fading them or playing them. So to see them matched up is kind of a bummer because they both exist in this tier, if you have your rankings, of being confusing to evaluate how good they are in comparison to other competition. So usually you can get really good line value on each of these guys. I mean, Jalin Turner's subline last time was outrageous because people just don't understand.
Oh my God, that was
the full
crazy.
Extent of his skill set. They just don't get it. I think both guys can have success. I took some early action on Jalin Turner at -130. I am currently holding it. I'm not sure. I just feel like it's pretty easy that I'll be able to pivot off of it live if I have to, because Mullarkey should be the more potent fighter down the stretch, but he's just a very confusing guy. On one hand, the ZM fight is aged horribly. On the other hand, the Brad Riddell fight is aged beautifully. So Mullarkey just in general is very volatile, but I like some of the stuff he does. He's really good at hitting the body. He's really good at pressuring. But yeah, I'm gonna probably stick with Jalin, and I think he probably gets it done. But yeah, you can't play the line where it's at right now.
I totally get what you mean. So Sean got in early, line sniped it a little bit. That is oftentimes what you got to do in this game because it gets a little bit less appealing to play somebody later in the week. Ludovit Klein at +172, I feel okay about it, but at +140. I'd be like, maybe a unit or so. It's like then I'm a lot more hesitant to make the play. So price is very important. Billy, how do you feel about this fight, my man?
Well, I will say price is important. I'm not going to let a price tag determine how I feel one side or another. It's not like we're betting on a soccer game or a basketball game. We're betting on a 15-minute fight. I don't think a price tag is going to change my mind. But, man, I love me Jamie Mullarkey. He's always going to fight for your ticket, but I think that's going to be the demise for him here in this fight, man. I feel like Jalin Turner is going to get off something. And I'm not even going to deny his grappling because at first I thought this guy cracked really hard. Shouts to my boy Danny Betts over there on PubSportsRadio. We're on stream. He said, boy, you better start sprinkling that Jalin Turner by submission. And I was like, I kind of don't. I kind of don't want to do that. But I did it. And, boy, I was pretty shocked that he's gotten a lot better wrestling wise, which will come into play for this fight because I feel like the only way Mullarkey is going to win is maybe like a late finish or pushing this to the scorecards. But I'm kind of with Liam, like he was saying, this is definitely going to go inside the distance. And if it goes inside the distance, I heavily lean the Jalin Turner side. While Mullarkey will fight for your ticket, man, his chin won't fight for your ticket because that shit is not good. I think Jalin Turner is the right side. I would rather play it in daily fantasy than bet it at -170. If I could have got that opening line at -135, I would have definitely hopped all over that. But you know what? There's a lot of lines that are under that -200 range, like Bryce Mitchell this week. I'm trying to think of other ones. Rafael Dos Anjos. I think Jalin Turner is going to fly under the radar as the best one under that -200 range. You're muted, Liam.
Yikes. I was saying I like where your head is at, Billy. I think that makes a lot of sense to me as well. You got to look for the people that might go a little bit undervalued. Maybe you're taking a little bit of a risk. Maybe you're fading the public narrative. But I do think that if you want to get the win, if you want to get a big takedown, you got to have that confidence, and you got to have that willingness to, not walk take the path least followed. Jesus, I'm really searching for this metaphor. Now we can move along to the main card, guys. As we do so, want to ask everybody rocking with us live, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out my guests. They have all their information in the description box below. You can find them on social media. You can find their websites. You can find all the great work that they're doing. So I think that that's really important as well. And throw a like on this video if you like what we're doing. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. And we're going to kick it off. Greg Hardy and Sergey Spivak. Billy, go.
Oh, man. Let me tell you about a little COVID story, because I always go back to the COVID stories when there is no sports. We're at my brother's houses before we did live streams on Saturday, and, man, I messed up. I was a little bit messed up, but we were watching the Greg Hardy fight. Greg Hardy absolutely floored my man. I haven't cashed a Greg Hardy ticket since, to be honest with you, since that COVID fight. Man, it was honestly just heartbreaking to see a guy get cut from the NFL because some random girl was jealous of him. You know what? We're not even going to get into that. Because that's a he said, she said thing. Dana believed he didn't do it. I didn't believe he didn't do it. But you know what? Roger Goodell thinks he did it. I think the underdog of the week here is going to be Greg Hardy. Don't miss out. My man may grab an inhaler after round one, but it might not go after round one. Hardy's off of a 2-fight losing streak. But the one thing I will say throughout this 2-fight losing streak against Tybura and Tuivasa, my man can still throw with the best of them. I don't think Sergey Spivak is ready for how hard Greg Hardy hits. I love this prop on FanDuel. It's one of my favorite props of the week this week. It's going to be Greg Hardy by knockout plus 210. It just feels like if I don't play it, I'm going to leave money on the table. I want to root for Greg Hardy one more time, baby. Just one more time before you get another step up in level in competition.
Hey, best of luck to you, my man. I have gone down with the Greg Hardy ship before in that Tai Tuivasa fight. I was feeling pretty good about it at first, but man, that fight taught me a little bit about Greg Hardy. I don't think he likes getting hit back. I don't think he could take a very good punch. Alexander Volkov's not really a guy who's going to hit you all that hard and force you out of there. He just worked behind a jab. That's the only other elite fighter that he fought. And then Marcin Tybura, who I really thought
my man took that fight not on a full camp and flew halfway across the country in enemy's territory, a place that you ain't trying to go right now out there in Russia. And he went out there and he performed. He got his little inhaler after round one. He was Dean Thompson's like, let's go, Hardy, let's go. And Hardy went out there and he performed, man. Granted, he did not get the W, but he showed me heart in that fight. Heart that he didn't show me against Tai Tuivasa.
Well, dude, the Tai Tuivasa one isn't even about heart. It's about he got hit really hard and he got rocked and he had no heart. So he wasn't going to try and get up. But, dude, he was floored by that shot anyway. He literally looked like he saw a ghost. One of the worst reactions to a punch you'll ever see. But on top of that, dude, it's not about Marcin Tybura being good or like the circumstance or anything. It's about the fact that Greg Hardy was underneath him. And I'm telling you, I see it all the time. What somebody looks like the first time they're a white belt underneath somebody else. And they're panicking. And Greg Hardy looked like a white belt on their first day of jiu-jitsu when he was underneath Marcin Tybura. If he is underneath at any point in this fight, I do think the fight will be over. Like, the guy is like a panicker that can't breathe and has no cardio. He literally was just – there was no damage. There was no damage to that stoppage.
It's a daily
He's just
fantasy
scared and like he's just panicking, freezing, not doing anything, not reacting. It did not seem like hard ground and pound. And the ref is forced to stop it because he's not doing anything intelligent. I'm like, I can never bet on this guy again. I do think that Sergey Spivak, no prize, definitely could get knocked out in this fight. Definitely not a clear, competent wrestling game to fall back on. And he's going to be significantly smaller, which is what I think works in Hardy's favor here. But if Greg Hardy trips over his own 2 feet, this fight is over as far as I'm concerned. So it's just like, I think Greg Hardy is very live. but I think his win condition is predicated on him getting that early knockout. I do think the longer the fight goes, say what you will about the fight and the rest of the body of work, but this guy did take down Tai Tuivasa over and over as he was getting back up. Matt returned him, and just broke him and submitted him. And Tai Tuivasa was clearly better than him at the time, and relentless pace and aggression was enough for him to win that fight because Tai Tuivasa has zero ground game. And now Tai has worked on his wrestling, his grappling, whatever. Greg Hardy had nothing to offer from his back there. I think that if anybody gets past the first,
his whole entire life, and he got kicked out of the NFL. He wasn't.
I'm saying if anybody gets past the first level sprawl, Billy, he has nothing to offer on the ground. Zero. That's all. Sean, how do you feel about
He's an offensive lineman, man. He's not supposed to be in the MMA octagon. He's just a face.
Exactly, and yet here he is.
Yeah, I mean, for me, man, I've won money on Greg, and I've lost money on Greg his last two fights. And for me in this spot, it just still seems pretty clear to bet Greg Hardy personally. Sergey Spivak stinks, guys. I really I can't stress that enough. This guy stinks. He's going to be very undersized for this fight. Of course, Greg is going to be having to cut, 40 pounds or whatever the heck he's saying. I don't know if he's just clowning with the media. Maybe he does cut that much weight. Who knows? So he can get tired, but I don't know, man. This Spivak guy, his takedowns are terrible, so don't expect that he's going to be taking down Greg Hardy. He goes for the most basic judo type of throws. He's not going to be ipponing a NFL player. It's just not going to happen. Greg is going to be way too big to fall for that. He's going to have to be absolutely dead tired, gassed to get ipponned by Sergey Spivak's crappy takedowns. So I think it's largely going to be a striking fight in which, hey, say what you will about Hardy being scared to get hit. Spivak looks scared to get hit too, man, in his fights. He's shelling up. He's backing up. He's small. His striking
can't hit.
Stinks.
Hardy can at least hit.
Hardy can hit. Spivak isn't very potent. I mean, this is a guy who couldn't put away Oleksiejczuk Oleinik, okay? Oleinik is dead to rights after round one in every single freaking round. So, I don't know, man. I hope people keep betting Spivak, but they didn't. So I took some action on Greg Hardy at plus 185. I actually like it better than the KO at plus 210. Reason being because Hardy has won decisions. I don't mind taking a little bit of a loss on some money there. Yeah, man. I'm willing to lose more money on Greg Hardy. I think Spivak stinks, personally.
Same.
I definitely get that take, and I kind of tried to give myself an out on this fight, right? I do think that Spivak to win in the second round is something that's very possible here. I also think that Greg Hardy to win in the first round is very possible here. But I think that that's a lot of the outcomes here, is that one of these guys gets finished early. And if not in the first round, in the second round, I think neither one of them has the greatest gas tank. I think that neither one of them has a great chin or great reaction to punches. Neither one of them has the most reliable heart and toughness. This is, for me, an unders type of play. So I looked at fight does not start round 3 on FanDuel. I played that to win a unit at minus 130. And I also sniped fight ends by KO at plus 110. I played that for half of a unit. And I think that that's a good spot here. I don't think that Sergey Spivak is an elite level grappler. When he submitted Tai Tuivasa, it's because Tai Tuivasa has a chin from freaking, Hades. So you're not going to knock the guy out. He just was dead tired, had nothing left, had an arm choke, easy money. That's less likely, I think, to happen here because Greg Hardy showed all you need to do is throw light hammer fists at his crowded face and it's all over. So I'm this is probably going to be a positional TKO if it's the Spivak side. If not, it's probably going to be a standing KO on the Hardy side. So for me, that's two good ways to target this fight without investing in a bad fighter because I think we got a pretty bad fight on paper between these two. Neither one of them, I think, has much of
I
a
think this is
future
the
in
people's
top
main
15.
event, man. Anytime Greg Hardy steps inside the octagon, the truthers come out, baby.
Dude, I tried though. I really thought he was going to beat Tai Tuivasa, and he kind of just fought like a dummy. You know, I think if he had that fight to do over, I actually still think he could win that fight despite the fact that Tai's a bad matchup.
Yeah. Tai Tuivasa actually might be good, bro. Like, I actually thought Tai Tuivasa was a bum, but like, nah, Tai Tuivasa actually might get a title shot in a couple of years.
5 units, Tai Tuivasa against Derek Lewis. You're welcome, everybody. Kevin Holland against Alex Cowboy Oliveira at 170 pounds. This is another fight that I'm fired up about, a fight that I do have some betting action on. And, you know, early this week, Bet Online drops their props, and I see Kevin Holland by sub at plus 550, and it catches my eye. I'm like, man, I think that Kevin Holland can submit this guy. So I locked in small plays on Kevin Holland sub at plus 550 and Kevin Holland sub 1 at plus 1200. When you look back at the resume, Alex Oliveira has been submitted in the first round more than one time. And I think that that's something to look into, is how are guys losing their fights. He's been submitted, I want to say 4 times. I want to say 2 or 3 of those were in the first round. So oftentimes he's losing early. I don't think that he's been showing up to his fights with the greatest level of preparation. I don't think he has a great level of consistency. And I do think he crashes into the clinch very often. I think Kevin Holland, he gets a bad rap for his grappling, but he's not a bad grappler, and people give him shit for it. It's not accurate, you know, like the Brendan Allen fight. I think he got hurt a little bit when he got submitted in that fight. I think pace had something to do with that as well. Brendan Allen just kept going in the scrambles for longer than Holland could, but Holland had some moments in the grappling in that fight, and he survived for 2 minutes in a submission attempt from Derek Brunson. Darren Till quick tapped in like 2 seconds. When Derek got a hold of that neck, he's like, see, I'm out of here. So you see that there's some heart, there's some toughness in the grappling from Kevin Holland. And on top of that, he has gotten submissions, including some of the ones that have troubled Cowboy Oliveira. He's gotten guillotine chokes. He's gotten triangle chokes off as well. And I think that if he takes the back, he's got long arms. He's got a decent rear naked choke series. I think he could get the choke here as well. So for all those reasons, I like Kevin Holland to win the fight. I like him to win the fight inside the distance. I like 170 much better as a weight class for Kevin Holland. I think that he's shown several things to me in terms of changing his style, changing his preparation, changing his camp. I think he's serious about his career. I do think he's trying to make a run. I don't think that's the case for Alex Cowboy Oliveira. I think he's trying to get money. And I think for that reason, I like Kevin in this spot. I think he's going to get it done inside the distance. And I think most likely that's going to be by submission. So I played Kevin Holland by sub again at plus 850 on FanDuel. I thought that was a great number. And yeah, I think Kevin Holland is going to come out here to prove a point that he can wrestle and grapple better than people think. And I think he's going to have success doing so. Sean, how do you feel?
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of what you said. Oliveira, he's fathered 185 children. He's
got more kids than UFC wins.
Yeah, he's coming in here to collect some money. Child support is coming after the boy. I don't think he's about this life anymore, truthfully. I think Kevin Holland's a bit younger. He's a bit motivated. And honestly, I just think on their best days too, I think Kevin Holland still beats him either way. So Holland is clown. Holland, the only way he loses this fight is if he gives Oliveira the Sabata fight. And he's not going to give him the Sabata fight. He's going to go forward. Oliveira is going to go forward. They're going to crash. Holland's going to clip him. It's going to be a club and sub. And we'll all cash tickets. I got plus 850 on the sub.
Cheers, my brother. I love to hear that. I like that we're lining up on this one. Billy, are we going to make it unanimous, or are you like the dog in this one?
Man, oh, man. You know it's going to be a pay-per-view weekend if Kevin Holland is your most confident pick of the card, because Alex Oliveira is just a quitter, bro. Every time I think of Alex Oliveira of recent, it's just quit. But I think the biggest thing here for this fight, the MMA gods finally talked to Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland actually looked at his fucking career and is not fighting at middleweight anymore. he decided to cut weight to go down to welterweight, the division that he's supposed to be fighting in finally. Kevin Holland's about to smoke Alex Oliveira. Alex Oliveira is finally about to get cut from the UFC. Wouldn't be surprised if we see him on a Bellator card this summer.
Hey, maybe BKFC will have him, or the NFC.
Ooh.
I know the guys from Best Fight Picks like looking for those UFC vets. So best of luck to Alex Cowboy Oliveira in whatever he is doing. But I do think it's going to be a tough road for him to hoe. I do think Kevin Holland is the motivated fighter here. And dude, Dawkins is huge. Dawkins is a big guy. And I think that Kevin was holding his own much better in the wrestling and grappling than a lot of people expected in that fight. And I do think that people have this, I think that at least when you see the early lines on this fight, people are thinking, I don't know, Kevin Holland did just have that kind of weird finish fight with Dawkins. I just think this is such a more beneficial matchup, more winnable matchup. I had Dawkins ITD there. So I have been like king of the Kevin Holland fade train, played Derek Brunson against him bigly. I played a bunch of anybody who could wrestle around the back. I have played against Kevin Holland, but I do think he's actually shown legitimate improvement. So more power to Kevin Holland. Best of luck this weekend, Big Mouth. A couple people have called me that in my day. So we can move along to the next fight here. Edson Barboza is going to be taking on Bryce Mitchell. And this is a fight where I've heard sharp guys I respect on both sides of this one. And I must say, I like Bryce Mitchell based on the initial style matchup, right? I do think that Bryce is probably going to push this guy into the cage. I think if this was in a smaller octagon, I would like it even more. I think it's going to be harder to do in the big cage, but I think Bryce is pretty reliable to get after somebody early, pump some volume in their face, do things to close the distance. And he's a hammer on top. There's just no other way to say it. Like, the guy has a really credible top game, in my opinion. I think he's good at passing the guard. I think he's good at operating from the top half guard. I think that he's also good at threatening people with, dynamic and unorthodox submission attempts. And I think that that's the kind of thing that, could potentially find a finish for him here if one is to materialize. Edson Barboza, he's not a bad grappler by any means, but he's really not a prolific grappler either. More so a defensive guy. He'll look for the occasional anaconda choke, something like that, but he's really just not a proactive grappler, likes to disengage and stand back up to his feet. I think Bryce Mitchell's probably going to stick to him like glue in this fight. And I think that he's going to have, his hands full, really. I like Edson. I did think that he had a winnable fight last time out against Giga Chikadze. And I thought that there was some reason to believe that Edson's durability issues have followed him from 55 to 45. We saw Calvin Kattar, who granted is a very good fighter, but who's been kind of beat up by long kickboxers before, walk this guy down with a lot of courage and conviction and beat the shit out of him. And Edson had the fight that he wanted, right? A striking-based matchup, and kind of got clowned in that one. I feel like he might be slowing down a bit. The Shane Burgos fight was a little bit more competitive than I expected it to be. To be honest, I like Shane a lot. I think he's a great fighter, but I also think he's too hittable to beat somebody like Edson Barboza reliably because Edson hits like a truck. I just have a feeling that Edson's time is kind of running out a little bit. The Ige fight was like, a nail biter kind of performance from Edson, barely scraped one out there. Ige was having wrestling success in that fight. I think, Sean, you mentioned it on Spaces, not really somebody we rate too highly in the featherweight division as a wrestler. Ige is not a horrible wrestler. He's just not exceptional there and has been thoroughly out-wrestled by the likes of Chan Sung Jung. So I think that this is a time to, maybe sit back and watch, or if you feel confident enough to get in on that Bryce Mitchell side. But I think a lot of people might be getting trapped by the number on the Edson Barboza side. He's faced guys that bring a lot of pressure to him before, not really fared well in a lot of those matchups, whether it be with striking or with grappling pressure. So unless he finds one of those, meme retreating knees like he did on my man Benny, I do think it's a tough matchup. Even the Kevin Lee fight, he basically gets completely dominated and then lands one spinning head kick that is the highlight of the fight, where Kevin Lee does the chicken dance. But man, I think that more often than not, in a 15-minute fight, Bryce Mitchell spends 11 minutes controlling this fight, if not finds a sub. So I like Bryce Mitchell to win the fight. Sean, how do you feel?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I love Edson Barboza, but just I can't deny what I saw on the tape. He gets pushed against the cage, like you said. And Bryce doesn't train with the best guys, but he does a lot of crafty stuff that works in modern MMA. He's really good with his trips. He's really good with his hand fighting. And flat out, Edson wasn't turning off the cage in several spots that I saw. Once he gets grounded by his opponents, his get-ups are extremely overrated. I've heard some takes from people this week. And I mean, from what I saw, he's a guy who's kind of playing guard off his back. He's going to get absolutely wasted by Bryce Mitchell if he gets taken down. It sucks to say because, I mean, I faded Bryce Mitchell against Feely. I thought Feely could get it done. I don't think that Edson's takedown defense is as good as the stats suggest. People will point to that stat, but it's a really good first layer takedown defense. But once things start to get complicated, a little more complex, he doesn't deal well with it. That said, his opportunity in this fight is going to be to turn Bryce off the fence, hit a tie clinch, and hit a knee, because Bryce is susceptible to that. It's just, I don't think it's going to happen. I actually have a kind of a small amount of action on Bryce. I took the minus 150. It's super small because I'm not confident. But yeah, honestly, guys, I think Edson might be KO or bust here. Sad to say.
Truly, truly. Legend of the game. And you got to just give him the respect for one of the hardest schedules in the history of the UFC. The guys fought everybody. And I always like to give those guys credit and respect. There's not too many of those road warriors who just say yes. And we're going to talk about another one later on this card as well. But, just got to give credit to the legends that do that. So shout out to Edson. Billy, how do you feel about this one?
He did that too on a contract that was like 80K 80. He just only recently got a good new contract. So man, Edson's put in the work, dude. I hope he gets some nice money on the way out. But sorry, Billy, go ahead with your take.
Nah, man, you guys summed it up perfectly. To be honest with you, this is a type of fight that I'm glad I've grown up as a bettor, because I feel like back in the day, like 2.5, 3 years ago, it was definitely be a fight where I would bet Thug Nasty and be all confident about it. But really looking into it, Barboza could be live, man. This is just a striker versus grappler matchup. Granted, you always want the grappler in this type of matchup, but who's to say Bryce Mitchell doesn't get these takedowns and Barboza starts piecing them up on the feet? And if Bryce Mitchell was a better striker, I have a lot more confidence in backing Bryce Mitchell. But you know what? His rap music is better than his striking, and that's saying a lot.
I think that's fair. He's definitely not a good striker, and he actually looks very uncomfortable in situations. So if it's one of these fights, to me, there are several fights that are like this where one side could be hindsight minus 300, but the line is where it is. And to me, if I had gun to my head, I don't think I would die. I think Bryce Mitchell's going to get it done, unfortunately.
Cheers, my man. I have no action on this one, but I did consider that minus 150 number on Bryce Mitchell. And, I'm going to see what happens with the line. I do think we saw it last time. I want to say that Edson was bet down to like very, very close odds with Giga right before the matchup closed. And I'm going to wait and see what happens with this line. I think Edson late week money is very possible here, especially when we see the weigh-ins, my man, because I do think that Edson's a fairly big guy. I don't think Bryce Mitchell is like a massive featherweight by any means. So maybe we get that weigh-in face-off photo, blast it around the internet a little bit, get a little more Barboza money in, and I'll join you on the Mitchell side there. Maybe,
man. I don't know. Bryce Mitchell, he has all of the Canadian truckers out there counting on him to expose the lamestream media. He's trying to squash the narrative. So I think that this is going to be a hillbilly celebration. I think all the hillbillies are going to come out and put their money on Bryce. So I think if you are on the Edson side, I think you can get a better number waiting. That's just my prediction. But I hope you get your line, Liam. I hope you do.
Hey, cheers. Arkansas stand up. But I think it should be a heck of a fight. I'm excited to see how the line shakes out and how the weigh-in shake out as well. I do think, Edson, as he gets a little older here, I think it's going to be harder and harder for him to make this weight. Definitely lifestyle commitments to make it. So if he does make it, I want to just see what he looks like physically. Got to also remember, guys, he's coming back off a pretty brutal fight. He did take a lot of damage in that fight, tried to stand up to Chikadze, but took a lot of clean shots in the process. And this is not a guy who hasn't been finished in the past. This is not a guy who hasn't eaten millions of punches in the UFC. So you got to keep that in mind. And, when is that cliff going to happen where he just drops off? I do think it's always a live possibility, as much as we love somebody like Edson. And, maybe we saw the first shades of that again at featherweight in his most recent bout. So with that being said, guys, we can move on. I talked about, a guy on this card who is a grinder, who's taken every hard fight that he's ever been offered and never, looked the other way. And man, that's Rafael Dos Anjos, and former UFC champion here, kind of lost his belt in unceremonious fashion at the hands of Eddie Alvarez. But boy, this guy on his rise through the division looked like $1 million. And he's been a road warrior. He's been taking on guys at 170 that nobody wants to fight and giving each one of them hell. Where's the easy fight for RDA at 170? Maybe Tarek Safadine or something. But even still, that's a guy who's way bigger than him. And he's shown that he can go in there against somebody who's longer, taller, walk him down, be a gangster, find him with the jab, touch him to the body. And he's going to need those tools because he's got the longer, taller, rangier Renato Moicano stepping in for Rafael Fiziev in this spot. I had an early bet on Fiziev at minus 154. The number had been absolutely crushed to minus 250. My ARB opportunities were absolutely tremendous. And of course, the fight gets canceled. That is what we call Murphy's Law in the Irish community. But with that being said, we move along and we look at now, what do we have in terms of an opportunity? We've got Renato Moicano stepping in here on very short notice. And the guy was like doing his thing, going on vacations, moving around, being about, gets the call. Okay, quickly come back, get ready. Got to cut, I believe he said 20 pounds plus between Wednesday and fight time. And maybe that's not the biggest amount of weight to cut if you're preparing your body to cut weight and drinking a shit ton of water and doing all the right things, preparing for a weight cut. I do think it's going to be harder to cut 20 pounds on 2 days notice. Anybody who's ever cut weight will tell you that shit ain't fun. And I think it's going to be very hard for him to do that. He's not a small guy in terms of frame. I know he has made 45 in the past, but he's walking around at 180. I think this is a guy who has some durability red flags. I also think we saw Jose Aldo exploit him with the hooks to the body, hitting him really hard with those hooks. And Renato Moicano, one of those long, tall guys, I think you mentioned in the Jamie Mullarkey breakdown with Jalin Turner, this is another guy who's got a long torso, big opening to be hit. And I think that we also see some powerful body work from Dos Anjos with the kicks. He's going to put hard shots on this guy's body throughout the fight. I think that the wrestling pressure is a potential avenue. Not to say he's going to get a ton of takedowns. I think Moicano is fairly competent in his grappling in all phases. But I do think that there's some reason to believe that as this fight gets extended, that Rafael Dos Anjos could get on top. He does have pretty hellacious ground and pound. He does have good submission defense and responsibility on top. He's gone in the guards of many competent top players. The Nate Diaz fight on the rise up that I was talking about, he absolutely beat the shit out of Nate standing in his guard. And, Moicano is definitely more dynamic, has a more modern game than those guys. But I still think RDA is going to have him covered here, especially given the context of the matchup, the short notice, the fact that RDA has been preparing for a 5-round banger with Fiziev. I think he's going to be fully ready for this fight, ready, confident to walk this guy down and come swinging heavies. He's also coming off a win, so I think his confidence should be there. He's got the better level of experience. I think he's got, even at this stage in his career, better durability on paper. And so I'm going to go ahead and take Rafael Dos Anjos here. My man Chris, I believe, slid in my DMs earlier. And if it wasn't Chris, it was somebody who was telling me they like the under 4.5 rounds here as well. I see that for sure. I think whether you're on the Moicano side or the Dos Anjos side, you could potentially make a case for the fight being finished. Dos Anjos has been knocked out in the past. I mentioned the Eddie Alvarez fight. So it doesn't happen often, but it has happened before. He has been hurt in fights at certain times. And we also can just acknowledge, like, Moicano has been a pretty opportunistic finisher in his UFC run. I just think it's been against such a lower level of competition. Damir Hadzovic would never share an octagon with Rafael Dos Anjos, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's like that guy's just not on the level. RDA has been fighting Kamaru Usman's, Colby Covington's, like the elites of the of the welterweight division, and faring quite well. I think it's arguable that he beat Colby. I didn't think so. Personally, I do score it 3-2 for Colby, but it's like, that's a close ass fight with a guy who a lot of people, believe in as like the second best welterweight on the planet. It's like, yeah, that's how good RDA is. So now we're saying against Moicano, who's a short favorite against Alexander Hernandez, now RDA is a short favorite against Moicano on a rapid turnaround where the guy's getting off a flight, cutting 20 pounds and showing up to the octagon. I'm like, that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Honestly.
To me personally. So give me RDA here at -152. Pretty big. Sean, how do you feel?
Yeah, it's a tough ask for Moicano for all the reasons you already mentioned. But just another one to mention, RDA has probably some of the best strength and conditioning in the game. The guy's motor is elite. I know he's trained in the past at Speed of Sport with Nick Curson, very elite strength and conditioning gym. I just think Moicano is going to get motored here. He's going to have to win in the clinch, just bottom line. And I think that RDA is going to be a lot stronger than Moicano. I think Moicano is maybe riding high right now. He wants to win big checks, like he said. In respect to the guy, I mean, he deserves to get paid. This just isn't the way, in my opinion. It's one thing to beat Alexander Hernandez, who, thank God there's so many people out there who think this guy is good, because thank you for that gift of a line. Easiest bet ever. This is a totally different animal. Alex Hernandez is basically a CrossFitter in the ring. He's doing freaking dances out there in the center while getting hit. So RDA is going to be in his face, man. He's going to be pushing a pace. I locked in a bet on RDA at -165. I think it's a good spot. See a lot of people with the late rounds, like Narco Cop said, a lot of the unders. I'm not 100% sure, but if the numbers are right, I just haven't looked at it yet. I'll take some of that. But this is probably going to be my biggest bet on the fight card, actually, is RDA money line at -165. Just everything's pointing towards it. The only thing you can say is maybe his age. But this is a guy who's taken his health very seriously, so I don't think he's going to show any age here, personally.
And Sean, just to bolster your point about the strength and conditioning, this is a guy who gassed out Colby Covington. Like, Colby Covington's corner was like trying to talk him through rounds 4 and 5 because he was spent, dude. RDA met him with the pace and kept answering. I do think that RDA, like, in order to answer Colby, he spent himself completely as well. So they both just spent the 4th and 5th rounds like hanging on to each other, just trying to keep themselves alive because they really gave a lot of themselves in that fight. But my man, I see RDA as like a very quality fighter, and to get him at this very short price, when I'm playing Fiziev against him, that's because I rate Fiziev as a top 10 guy lightweight in the world right now, personally. And when I look at RDA, he might be just outside of that. He might still be a top 10 to 15 lightweight on the planet. We haven't really seen him tested in these waters as much, but even the Paul Felder win, Paul Felder could beat guys right now that are in those lightweight rankings as well. This is a very tough guy in RDA.
So for anybody who's kind of curious about the strength and conditioning, if you look into Speed of Sport, they have a totally different strength and conditioning philosophy. I go over this all the time when I talk fights. It was why I bet Robbie Lawler heavy against Nick Diaz. The game has really developed over time. It used to be completely different the way these guys train, but Speed of Sport does things totally differently. They focus on your feet, the feet. They try and strengthen your feet, strengthen your explosiveness with your feet. Everybody's doing heavy load exercises still. That shit doesn't work, man. And it shows with RDA. He's got still a lot of pop, and he can pop many times over a fight. That's the key. He does not slow down. He carries his power. But Billy, give us the news. How big of a bet do you have on Moicano?
I'm actually with you, Sean. DraftKings dropped the ball on this one. They still have him priced as if he was an underdog. $7,400 for RDA is going to be absolute chalk on DraftKings this week. He's going to allow you to play any lineup that you want. It should be a pretty interesting slate this week because of that RDA price tag. I'm with you guys. Besides the long layoff, the age, and all that, throw that all out the window. In a 5-round fight, Moicano's not ready for a 5-round fight. Granted, if Islam Makhachev would have stepped up to the table, it'd be a different show, but it's not. We're getting Moicano. That's the guy that we're breaking it down with. So I guess I'm walking to the window with my RDA ticket. And to be honest with you, if you can avoid watching this fight, if you have an RDA ticket, just don't watch it. Go pay attention to your girlfriend for a minute or two and get the result after, because it's going to be one of those fights that, like, I don't know what it is about RDA. He's not a world blazer. You know what I'm saying? He's not like the most entertaining guy ever, but he's going to get the job done for you. It's a fat price tag, but it's warranted for a reason, man. If this is a 3-round fight, I would feel completely different, but I don't think people are understanding that the co-main event this week is a 5-round fight. And the fact that it's a 5-round fight, give me Dos Santos all day.
I'm with you. And I also think, I would certainly be less bullish in a 3-round fight, but I do think that RDA, man, he's just going to have opportunities to hit this guy hard in the body. And we've seen him kind of react poorly when that's happened to him in the past. I think that'll open up the shots upstairs. I think RDA is just going to have opportunities to land on this guy. And in addition, man, his leg kicking game isn't bad. So I don't think it's just going to be like free leg kicks for Moicano like a lot of people think it is. I think Moicano is going to be forced against the southpaw to take that inside low kick. And I think RDA is going to have opportunities to return with his own. He's been pretty proficient at it in recent bouts. So give me RDA. I like RDA to win the fight. I do like him to win inside the distance, but I wouldn't be stunned by a decision either. I didn't play any props on the fight. I think that the under 4.5 is live, but I do think it's been getting hit as well. So, RDA money line, anything under -160, I think is a gift.
I just wish this wasn't a 5-round fight, man, to be honest with you. I think Moicano would be a lot more live if it was a 3-round fight, but just coming in on short notice for a 5-round fight, nah, bro, you got to hit RDA.
I love it. And with that said, guys, we have done it. We've gotten through the fight card. We have gotten to the main event of the evening, the biggest fight on the card today. Want to thank the 53 people rocking with us live. We're going to close it out talking about George Masvidal and Colby Chaos Covington. And I've been writing my main event preview today. I've been going through my tape study today. And I got to say, I was a lot more bullish on Colby Covington before I watched the tape. And that being said, I'm still going to come out on the Colby Covington side. I'm still going to say I think he should be a fairly significant favorite here. But I do think that there are paths for Masvidal to win the fight. And so when I talk about how I think he could win or where I think he could be dangerous, I saw Colby Covington eat a lot of kicks to the body from RDA without catching any of them and taking him down. I think that that's a problem. If he's going to get kicked clean in the body and not catch them, Masvidal has one of the most like laser, open side body kicks. There's one going around Twitter where it sounds like a baseball bat when he kicks Nate Diaz in the body, and Big Dan in the back is like he even is like, oh, damn, like that was a brutal one. And I think that, granted, Nate Diaz is kind of like a pole waiting there to be hit, but I also think Masvidal fucked him up, like did a lot of damage in that fight. I think when you see him against somebody who's like a swarming guy like Usman, who has the power advantage over him, Masvidal kind of likes to ward that power edge over people. I think that it was what got him back into the Darren Till fight. He was hurt early in that fight. I think Sean mentioned as well on Spaces the flying dick kick, where he tries to start off the fight in explosive, high-level fashion, and instead, it brings it to like a grinding halt for a minute while Till has to recover. And could that have thrown off the way that fight played out? think it's certainly a possibility. I can think of a lot of examples of fights where the outcome is strange and predicated by multiple groin shots. Bobby Green TKOing James Krause comes to mind. I think it was goodness. Oh, he was just booked to fight Paddy Pimblett, and then they pulled the fight. Jared Gordon and the Brazilian character from Fortis MMA, Carlos Diego Ferreira. That was another example, low blows leading to a weird TKO stoppage. So I think that Masvidal in this fight, he's got to get going with his kicks, and he's got to make sure that he doesn't get them caught. And he also has to keep Colby at range. Colby gets a little bit reckless sometimes when he's closing the distance. There's times when he fights in what looks like technical striking manners. Like he will throw a normal 1-2 that's crisp. He will throw a head kick that almost always lands on the forearms guard. He really struggles to get that through, but it occupies people's hands. It forces them to get a little bit more upright, and then he shoots underneath it. So I think that he does a lot of, interesting tricks to get inside, but sometimes he just gets lazy against the fence and he'll drop down to both knees, which I think could be a problem. I do think that Masvidal, he's not the world's greatest grappler, and he's very telegraphed in what he's going to do, but he's not horrible at it. He's going to look for the Kimura and guillotine switch off. He's going to look for that, ATT switch and stand up against the cage. And I've seen a few fights where Colby pushes that, relentless pace, but doesn't start right from the get-go. And those fights get a little bit dicey. Or when he does push that relentless pace right from the get-go, if he doesn't get the guy out of there, the fight gets a tiny bit dicey towards the end. And that was what was happening with RDA. And so I think that he should have the cardio covered. He's the younger guy here. It's a question for me of how does Colby show up given his recent outings and his recent results. He almost got knocked out by Usman the second time, showed some good resolve there, was able to get back up, get back into the fight. I think that was impressive as well, fighting his way back in a la Robert Whittaker from a few weekends back. So that's always impressive from somebody. But now he's had two examples of a guy who just bested him physically and was able to out cardio him, and it's like he just has a bunch of things that have not gone his way that were critical to his understanding of himself as a fighter. And my question is where is his confidence at heading into this fight? There's a few times in his recent bouts where he's entered range and then just stopped, entered range, hands up, and then just threw nothing, waited a second, didn't shoot, and just paused. I think that that's an opportunity for Masvidal to crack him. And, Masvidal, he's again, not the most reliable guy, but when he's had opportunities and cracked people, he's made the most of them and finished them. He put Darren Till out bad. That was a really good knockout from him, and one that I wasn't expecting. And I think that, man, I just don't feel as comfortable laying the Colby price as I did coming into the tape when I had watched the tape. So I'm going to watch more Masvidal tape and kind of get a gauge on his recent form to make my final decisions on this fight. I more so studied the Colby side here, but I did see some things that were concerning, like the open side body kicks that get through pretty regularly on Colby. Sean, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, so first things first, onlyfans.com/Kobe Covington, enter promo code Liam Picks Fights. This guy, man, what are we going to do with these two guys? It's basically the battle of Trump's sons. He's made it apparently vocal on the golf course, according to the pink suit guy. Apparently pink suit guy, he tweeted that there's a rumor that on a golf course, somebody told him that he hopes Masvidal wins because Masvidal is legit and he thinks Colby is a phony. So Trump might be on to Colby's shtick at this point, but whatever. This is a betting show. Just thought that would be helpful analysis for everybody.
I love it, Sean.
It's tough, man. So we had somebody on our spaces who's both sparred with both of these guys. He's pretty in tune with the Florida scene. And he said that he thinks Masvidal is going to have chances here. That said, Colby is an endurance bully, and we know that he's going to have better endurance here. So I'm predicting that his motor is going to be too much for Masvidal. Have you guys looked at the embedded videos yet and looked at what Masvidal looks like?
I mean, he looks like he's always in good shape. There's never.
Not now.
Was he on his
Really?
BMF tour with the little fight
Bro,
league?
bro, my buddy George of Narrative Nation, he sent me a DM because like we were trying to figure out this fight. He sent me a screen cap from the embedded. Masvidal looks like crap, dude. In my opinion, he's
I don't
looking
blame you.
soft. He's
Yo,
looking.
George, if you're watching, send me that DM, brother.
I'll forward it to you after, man. But like, yeah,
Definitely.
Man, it's really tough because when betting fights, I'm trying to latch on something to look at, but there's so many variables here that I just don't like. You know, Masvidal being fat, Colby training at MMA Masters, which is a doo-doo camp. People just haven't figured it out yet. It's not a good camp. I mean, look at how terrible this guy looked versus Usman in the second fight. Liam, you pointed to some of this. You said he just looked a little scared, not good decision making. They don't prepare people well for fights, man. I'm 100% convinced, which is what will solidify my Ilya Topuria fade in the future here. But that said, I do think that Colby still has the tools to get this done. He does some stuff that just looks good on the cards. When he pins you against the fence, he alternates between going up and down the legs. He's really good about pinning you in the cage, going for the legs. He just makes fights really boring and dumb. I don't know why people are fans of this guy. His style is boring. Yeah, everybody's plugging in the codes. Yeah, but I think Colby is probably going to get a decision here. Jorge is pretty old. He looks kind of fat. I'm not confident.
Makes sense to me. And that's the thing that just throws me off is like, it seems like the world has full confidence in Colby Covington this weekend. And that's always where I just start to get that little like tingle up and down my spine where I'm like, well,
I'll tell you
some tricky feeling. Yeah.
I'll tell you, I had a bet on Masvidal. I bet it early, plus 300. I cashed it out. I'm not throwing money on the Colby side. I mean, how could you play this number? But sorry, go ahead, Billy. What do you think on this one?
To be honest with you, pre-flop, before I watched the tape, I was kind of thinking the same exact way as you. But in reality, bro, I really feel like people are really underestimating Colby Covington's striking, man. He's putting up good volume on the feet. Like you guys said, he's a cardio endurance guy. He's going to have the wrestling advantage. I think that while he might not have the power advantage, he might have the volume advantage. How many times have we seen Jorge Masvidal think that this is a UFC fight? In reality, he's fighting like he's back in the Kimbo Slice fight leagues, and he's
man,
blah, 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 blah.
I agree.
There's a lot of emotional stuff that's coming into this, but Colby Covington's one of the best chameleons in the sport of talking shit. But once it goes inside the octagon, the dude's gonna fight for your dollar, man. And man, I used to hate Colby Covington, but in reality, this week I could be the biggest Colby Covington fan ever, man. Colby Covington round 4, 5, or by decision at minus 165 on FanDuel is the best prop of the whole entire weekend. That's free money in the bank.
That's a decent price tag on that. I agree because
it's a minus 355. You're cutting the price tag down.
Finishes are live. He's not putting out George early. If anything, George is going to put him out early. I'm with you somewhat on the striking, but dude, I'm telling you, man, if Colby throws some of that crap he threw against Kamaru, it's going to be pathetic because he was throwing some lead uppercuts that were just whiffing. I don't know what you saw, Liam, but it's funny because people were like, oh my, I had a bet on Covington versus Usman, the second fight. And everybody's like, oh my God, the fight's so close. I don't know what people were watching. Usman was throwing the same 2 looks the whole fight and clipping them the whole time. I didn't think it was a close fight at all.
I'm just going to throw that fight out of my memory because, to be honest with you, when we get Colby Covington as like the C version, he looks crappy. That's why he's the C version of Colby Covington. But if we get a B or an A version of Colby Covington out there tonight, I really just don't think Jorge Masvidal is that good, to be honest with you. Like, his career's over.
But can MMA Masters bring that out of him?
I agree.
When was Colby the A version of Kobe? It was
when he lost against Usman the first time.
He was probably training with the best room in the country, which is ATT Coconut Creek. Yeah, look at Narco. He's trying to justify his value play. He looked like crap, bro.
He looked the best. He looked good against Usman in the first time, and then the second time he did hurt him late. But
he did.
To be honest with you, he was way too late at that point. His jaw was crooked, half sideways, against the octagon. I thought he was. To be honest with you, I thought the ref was going to call it when Usman absolutely floored Colby and he went face first. That was kind of scary to watch.
Dude, I really thought, though, Colby's recoverability has been pretty damn on point throughout his career. And I also wanted to go back and say, like, the Warlley Alves fight, that one I definitely throw out. If you guys go back and rewatch that, you've heard his coaches say this week, his former coaches from ATT, that he was hurt going into that fight. Watch him get finished with the guillotine. He taps the guillotine after, like, slamming him and is literally just holding his ribs. He is not, like, in threat of the choke. He just hurt his own ribs slamming the guy and was like, oh, fuck this. And I think that that's kind of like a meme outcome. So otherwise, he's really only lost to Usman. Like, he has to be a big favorite here. I just think that there's a little bit of that danger factor. I like Billy's read here a lot more, playing Colby at a prop that's a little bit of a reduced price here. Don't want to lay minus 337 average market price here, 77%. It's going to be very hard to get an edge there. Even if Colby wins this fight, you know, like very consistently, and you only give Masvidal that KO puncher's chance, that's normally somewhere between 10 and 15% in MMA. So I just think that that's, you'd have to have a very generous and confident cap on Colby to get to that money line, in my opinion. But I do think rounds 3, 4, 5 by decision, that all makes a lot of sense to me.
It's 4-5
decision.
In the alt round betting section for FanDuel under round props, go to 4-5 or decision minus 165, because that's going to go up to minus 180 on fight day.
I like that read a lot, Billy. And unfortunately for me, New York doesn't have round-based props via FanDuel, so I will have to drive to Jersey to get access. But you know me, I'll do whatever it takes to get the right bet down. So with that being said, guys, we have done it once again. From the bottom all the way to the top. We broke down every fight on the card. We gave out a lot of betting information. Want to point out, so far, plus 21 units on the year, 17% ROI for me so far in 2022. Been hitting predictions at over 75% clip. So I'm taking that victory lap today and saying, if you guys have been getting value from this show, please go ahead and share this on social media. Let somebody know about it. Been putting out great content. Last week, one of my guests, Julian, came on the show and gave out an accumulator that hit 25 to win 8.8K. I'm telling you, like, we just continue to give out valuable information on the show. So I appreciate you guys each and every week for tuning in. But if you could go ahead and show us that support, throw a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, let people know that you're watching. I'd really appreciate it if you can go ahead and do that. Also wanted to mention, like my man Narco Cop says here, catch Liam tomorrow giving you Lambo plays. I've got many of them, starting with Kevin Holland sub 1. So we'll start from there and keep moving. But wanted to thank my guests very much for coming on today. My man Sean Orr, please let the people know where they can find you. And thank you very much for your time today, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. First time I've talked with Billy. It was a very good time. You can find me on Twitter at Sean Orr, and I'll be publishing an article usually Friday night on www.sharpmma.com, and that'll give you kind of the best bets at the current lines. So definitely go check those out. Appreciate the follows, and thanks for having me on, Liam.
Absolutely, my man. It's always a pleasure. Returning friend of the show, one of the very sharpest guys that we have on here. So we're always grateful to have you, my man. And guys, if you're not reading the Sharp MMA article, you just don't like money or something. I don't know how to help you, because he continuously prints money in that article. And on top of that, he gives really sound analysis. So whether you're going with his bets or going against him, you're going to be smarter if you read it. Billy, how do you feel about this? In the sense of, have you ever read Sean's article? I mean, give me a testimony here. I think that it's
Sean,
it's arguably the best.
Wait, Billy. Yeah, he trolls the comment sections of my articles. That's what he does.
I do a little bit of trolling, a little left, a little right. You know, the MMA community says I'm the MMA Kobe Covington. Take it what it's worth.
I love it. Billy,
Grizz.
where can the people find you creating chaos?
Yeah, they can find me over on Twitter at Getting Bills. But if you really want to get into the real things, I would probably hit the Instagram bio at Billy Briz DFS. It gets a little bit spicy on the Instagram streets. Instagram's #1 MMA capper, how to make it to the YouTube streets. Liam is one of my favorite people to listen to about fights. Just talk, man. I can't wait to see how your 2022 is going to play out. I said it in January, Liam's going to be one of the best MMA cappers in the community, and it's coming to for nutrition. I can't even say the goddamn word, but if you guys want to check me out, make sure you check me out over at Getting Bills. And we got some things cooking up in the background over there at the Pick Vault. About to run their MMA content over there, get their MMA stuff going. It's a artificial sports intelligence app, but they don't have UFC yet. So we're going to break that out. Us and the pub guys are going to definitely knock up on their doors and get the ball rolling for 2022. It's pay-per-view week. Last week of package sales for your boy. Oh, man, we got into the package game about 2 years ago, selling picks and stuff like that. It's all coming to an end. It's been a crazy ride. There's been a lot of good package stories, a lot of crazy package stories that almost got me damn near fired from my YouTube job. But on the brighter days we go.
I love it, Billy. It's been a pleasure to have you on here, my friend. You can normally find me and Billy shooting the breeze on PubSportsRadio live watch along. So if you guys are interested, go ahead and check that out. It's a lot of
Saturday
fun.
Night.
Giving away a lot of live bets that have cashed on that show and some crazy props as well. So make sure you check that out if you want to have a fun time and want to mute some of that bad commentary. Shout out to my friends at scoresandodds.com. I've been one of their most profitable experts since I started with them. I think I'm the second best human handicapper right now on the service in terms of profit and ROI percentage. So feeling very good about that as well. You guys can find my premium picks on their website. You can find my written articles, rotogrinders.com, and expect a main event preview by tomorrow morning. So thank you guys all so much for tuning in. This has been another great episode of Liam Picks Fights. God bless you all. Enjoy those fights. If you choose to gamble, do so legally, responsibly, within your means. And make sure you come back next week because we're going to have all the same fun again. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.